Welcome to Engineering Influence, a podcast from the American Council of Engineering Companies. We're coming to you live, or live to tape at least, from our 2023 Fall Conference in Austin, Texas. Second day, early morning general session, packed room. Usually you don't see that on the second day, especially after PAC events the night before. But the crowd came out for our guest this morning, Ben Saunders, polar explorer, inspirational speaker, climate tech investor. And, you know, you had a fantastic presentation. And there's a lot, I mean, I don't even know where to start. I mean,
well, I'm very honored we had a good turnout. I don't know how many hangovers there were in the room, but the lights were too bright for me to really tell. But
exactly,
yeah, full house.
I mean, you're one of a few people who have been to the most extreme corners of the world, both poles. You've spent probably more time in Antarctica than the people who are stationed there for science, right? 4,500 miles in the polar extremes.
Yeah, over 20 years, so 12 big expeditions.
And I mean, the photos, talking about it doesn't do it justice, but it's amazing that you're able to do this, and starting off at a young age, 26, getting the idea, doing the first expedition, kind of just organizing it and building it as you kind of building the boat as you sailed it, right?
Absolutely, yeah.
And that first expedition that you did to the North Pole didn't turn out exactly as you planned, right?
Yeah, I've had. I mean, I said this on the stage just now. I've had many more failed expeditions, attempted expeditions, than I had successful ones in 2 decades. And I think that process was, in a way, it was inevitable. I was consistently trying to raise the bar in a pretty challenging professional niche, that entails trying to perform in some very harsh, unpredictable climates. Yeah. And when you're trying to raise the bar in that, of course you're going to fail. So getting happy with that over the years, and I say fail, I'm still alive. I still have all my fingers and toes. I can't really feel temperature very well on my right hand, but they're still there.
They're still there.
So to me, when I say fail, I didn't achieve the objective, but I always got home. And that was always the number one goal. Like don't die, basically. So.
But even when, and you said this during the end of your talk, that even when you did succeed, when you were able to get and finish Scott's journey, when you were able to actually go to the South Pole and come back, you realize that success doesn't have an end point. Yeah.
It was interesting. Somebody said to me a few years back that they thought that failure was much easier to manage than success.
Yeah.
And I would agree with that, because every time I failed, if I didn't achieve the objective, the goal was still there. The thing that had been giving me the motivation, the determination, the drive, the work ethic, all of this stuff was still there. And in my world, it was very seasonal. There was one time window each year to either head to the Arctic or head to Antarctica. So if I hadn't achieved the objective, or if I wasn't ready, wasn't fully funded, wasn't fully fit, everything, the logistics were in place, I had to postpone by a year. Yeah. And that happened many times over 20, 25 years. And every time I failed, the motivation grew. Yeah. And my wisdom grew. And I realized there were things I could do slightly differently when the next time window, the next chance came around. But of course, when you succeed, in my experience, the goal is gone. Yeah. The thing that's giving you all the drive is gone. And in my case, it was the sort of goal that took 100% of my bandwidth, my energy, my time, the money I could raise, leading this huge team. So therefore, there was 0% left to think about what I would do next or what I'd do afterwards. I just assumed that life was going to be fantastic because I would have changed the game, raised the bar, like broken a world record, just redefined what was considered possible in my field. So it was an interesting lesson, that this peculiar feeling of being like rudderless after having achieved this huge goal, and also this immediate switch from being this laser, focus on one goal to the exclusion of everything else. Nothing else mattered. Like, just for years, but also crucially for 4 months in Antarctica, and then came home, and suddenly the motivation, it was all other people's demands on my time, my energy, and a lot of that was commitments I made to sponsors, to the media. So I came back to this treadmill of obligations and demands.
After having so much time, where, as you mentioned, it's like your schedule is essentially the same every day.
Yeah.
The landscape is essentially unchanging, as stark and beautiful, or just in its beautiful starkness, and the fact that it's so monochromatic to an extent. I mean, and then coming back and having all these demands.
The transition was always strange. I've actually just thought up something I meant to share on stage, but ran out of time. One of the big lessons for me was around focus and attention and where you're investing your energy, physically, mentally, emotionally. And Antarctica taught me, well, both poles, many expeditions taught me that ultimately these were exercises in efficiency. They weren't. I think sometimes people might assume I'm this sort of thrill-seeking adrenaline junkie who, there's not much adrenaline. These are long, slow tests of endurance, 1.5 miles per hour, long, slow slog.
Or like you said, you could be moving, but the polar ice cap is moving the other direction. You're actually doing negative distance.
So sort of frustrating long test of endurance. And it's a very simple equation. It's sort of energy, distance, time, and you're trying to. So efficiency is the one thing that matters.
Yeah.
And I realized quite early on that if I was, for example, in Antarctica, the first week we had very strong headwinds, just infuriating, just skiing into this headwind made it really hard to operate, to be comfortable, to navigate. I remember a few days in a row just yelling swear words into the wind.
Yeah.
Like I was so angry at the environment.
Yeah.
And then realizing this was stupid. There's nothing I can do about the wind. And yelling at the top of my voice is a waste of energy. Now it's marginal, but the whole thing is on margins. So it was, to me, the lesson was, where are you investing your time, your energy, physically, mentally, emotionally? Are you investing in things you can change, you can affect, you can do better, or are you wasting it on things that are outside your control? Which I think it's very easy for all of us to do these days, when we all have devices that will give us 24/7 stuff that makes us feel angry, outraged, alarmed, depressed, whatever, and nothing we can do about most of these things. Natural disasters, wars, they're all going on. That's out of our immediate control. So it was, and I think the Stoics were quite good at this, back in ancient Greece, like deciding what is within your control and what isn't, what's outside your control, and trying to focus your energy on that.
It's been one of those things that's talked about for centuries. The idea of the sculptor looking at a block of marble and seeing the finished sculpture and thinking about, what do I have to remove to make the sculpture happen, right? What do I have to do to edit to make the painting? We overcomplicate things, and I think that's a good kind of transition to what our audience needs to know, is that you have so many demands on your time, so many things you have to do, and with so much technology, we tend to overcomplicate. And I thought about this when I've been oddly completely separate from this, thinking about a lot of the special forces training, especially in with the Green Berets in the Army. It's okay, it's physical, but 99% of it's mental, to weed out people who, deprived of sleep, deprived of food, given a task that's complex, and who can do it more efficiently with a team and actually come out at the end and solve a complex problem. And that's what people are looking to weed people out for. It's how do you respond to these complex things and do it efficiently.
When you're not at your best.
When you're not at your best. One of the things that you did talk about is just the fact that you have this landscape that few people have ever seen. And especially in the northern pole, essentially it's an ocean, so you're floating. And then what you just said at the end of being in a tent and worrying about the crack of the ice underneath the tent, I never even considered that you'd be in a tent and then the ice could crack underneath, and then you're in the Arctic Ocean.
It's never happened, but that was always a fear.
And of course the whole idea of the crevasse, that freaks me out, because I just have these, because there was one video I think I saw online of a skier who actually fell in and thankfully was saved, but the fact that could be covered in a very, very thin blanket of snow.
Crust of snow,
I mean, and there's no map to tell you where they are. And for teamwork, to rely on someone else to be able to help you navigate through that it's just amazing. I mean,
and we were. I'm sorry to say that, but we were. There were two of us in Antarctica, but in some ways we were the ultimate remote workers.
Exactly.
We had a team of 12 full time in the background. Extraordinary specialists in the different pieces of this jigsaw puzzle. So it might be navigation, satellite imagery, weather forecasting, nutrition, physical training, psychology, the commercial side, sponsors, press, communications, all that stuff. So this extraordinary team of background, and yet Taka, my teammate Taka and I were thousands of miles away from our back office, effectively. But yet we had to trust them with our life, with our lives on a daily basis. So it was an interesting lesson in communication.
Yes.
And I sometimes worry that people might assume that my message is sort of old-fashioned tough guy, Mr. Motivator. Like, come on, you wimps. You think your lives are hard. Check out how nearly dead I got. And yes, these journeys took a degree of work and effort and resilience and all those things. But consistently, one of the scariest things I had to do was work out how to ask for help. From my team
and rely on your team. It's more. It's not a. It's the whole idea.
As someone who prided myself on my ability, on my self-reliance, that took some negotiating with my ego to remind me that the whole point of having a team is that we help each other out.
So that the entire expedition. I mean, that could take a whole conversation in itself. But let's talk about where you are now investing in climate technology, because the way that you put it, I mean, nobody really thinks about the size and scale of Antarctica until you boil it down to the point where it is practically 3 million tons
of glacial ice
per person.
Every single human being on Earth.
So you're looking in venture capital, climate technology. You're one of the few people who've been there and understand it. What are you looking to do? What's your aim in raising funds for
so I'm at the moment putting together a first fund. It's $15 million, which in this world is a micro fund. It's a very small first fund. And I'll be investing in between 30 and 40 startups really. So founders at like day one. So I'm putting in what's called pre-seed or seed capital. So I'm not an analyst by profession or by inclination or training. So I'm not the best person to be assessing a sort of P&L and balance sheets. But of course, at day one, the numbers are all projections. They're just forecasts. So, and really, you're trying to assess the individuals, the founders, the team, like their drive, their purpose, their resilience. And I think the last 20 years has given me some useful, transferable wisdom. Assessing people quite quickly, because I had to do that for 20 years. I'd find brilliant problem solvers who I could trust, not just with the capital I'd raise in that world of sponsorship, but it came from huge global businesses with a lot of reputation risk. So decide, can I trust the people can they get the job done? Can I trust them with the money I raised? Can I trust them with my life? So I've been like selecting people for 20 years. So I'm hoping that crosses over here. The motivation, as you said, it came from 20 plus years of realizing that I'd been witnessing the obvious decline of these incredible, the natural environments that made me who I am, and a desire to try and move the needle up a little bit. And I don't think the answers are going to come with doing a bit less, recycling your beer bottles or taking the train. It's going to come from innovation, from technology. 1902, I heard this the other day, the biggest global industry was whaling. For whale oil. So I'm an optimist. I think that actually human history can change trajectory pretty quickly. So I think the answer lies in innovation, in technology, and in inventors, that people kind of working on stuff, and scientists, and I think if there's anything else I can bring to the party, it's that I've spent 20 years now as a storyteller, and I've realized that eventually realized that there's an importance to that. I think for any leader, humans aren't inspired by data. They're inspired by stories. Now, I'm not saying data doesn't matter. I'm saying data is fundamentally important. But as a leader, you have to be able to convert data into a human story that is compelling, engaging, inspiring for the people that are looking to you. So I'm realizing in this new world that one of the things I can do is help highly technical founders, maybe PhDs, brilliant scientists, inventors with incredible IP, technical knowledge, but they're often not great storytellers. They're often not very good at translating this really complex thing they're working on into a story that more people understand. So you're able to just translate that and put some actual. So it's a whole new adventure, and I'm loving it. Someone I had a call this year from a well-meaning advisor who'd worked on Wall Street for years. She said, "Benny, are you sure about this? Like, very different to your old world. Fundraising, that's really hard. Then when you raise the money, then the hard work starts. Like, you've got to find these brilliant
Once
people,
you have it, you gotta
And my response was like, this is exactly what I did for the last 20 years. Like, raise the money, really hard, took years, and then select brilliant people and work damn hard with them for years. Like that was what I did. So
it's amazing how things change. Like you start off as a polar explorer, 26-year-old. You want to kind of fulfill the Edwardian explorer kind of ethos, and now you're pretty much venture capitalist running a business.
Yeah,
you turn it into
and loving it. And of course, I think approached properly with a bit of vision and ambition and grit, like adventure is business.
Yeah.
It certainly was for me for 20 years.
Yeah.
And business is adventure. Like they're two in so many ways.
I think that's a great way to close it out. Business is adventure. So and hopefully our CEOs in the room consider their businesses an adventure. So Ben, thank you so much for taking the time.
It's been a pleasure.
Great presentation.
Thank you.
And wish you all the best in future endeavors especially. And it's an honor to meet you. It's fantastic.
Thank you.
So again, this has been Engineering Influence, a podcast from the American Council of Engineering Companies. And we'll see you next time.